Mzansi, welcome to it as Hollywoodbets brings you Game On with quite a lot to talk about on the European front with the recently concluded European Championships. We'll also be speaking to Gareth Southgate later on about some of the pre-season preparations in some of the local teams, and a lot of them going abroad to get things ready for the upcoming DStv Premiership campaign. And also joined by Brian Baloyi to discuss, well, the sad passing of a legend in South African football, that being Screamer Tshabalala. And on that note, we start, of course, with Shane. Shane, the name Screamer Tshabalala, well, goes back a long time in South African football. And for those that are true scholars of the South African game will know his contribution to the game, an untimely passing away, and a true loss to the game, to someone who's played a huge part in where we are today.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, he was a charismatic man, you know, even though we had our differences, which we did. You know, he was still a brilliant man. Football, I mean, look what he did at Sundowns. He was a national coach. He went to Pirates, was involved there. So, yeah, condolences to all.
Yep, our thoughts and prayers very much with the Tshabalala family and the entire South African footballing fraternity as well. Now, Shane, let's look at the game we were talking about last weekend, of course, the final for the Euros, Spain up against England. It ends with a 2-1 win for Spain. Many would say that's the result that we're expecting with Spain going into that game, the favourites. But what did you make of the final?
Yeah, you know, we spoke about it before, and the best team won, put it this way. The tournament, over the whole tournament, the best team won. You know, we spoke about this last week, and I made a bold prediction and said, if I was the coach, I would have left Harry Kane out. As soon as Harry Kane went off, it changed. The way they played changed. You know, they looked a lot better. And unfortunately, these things, you can't be holding on to sentiment as a coach. You got to play your best team at all times. And if a guy's out of form, leave him out. Unfortunately for them, they didn't do that. But let's give credit to Spain. I mean, young player of the tournament, Rodrigo, a midfielder. Have you heard about that? And it just shows you how important he was. And in the final, when they got injured at half time, I was very worried. You know, I had a private bet with a girlfriend about this, and I went with Spain, she went with England. And when he went off, I said to her, oh, yes, trouble. The comment to me was, does one man make such a big difference? Yes, he does. But look at Spain. I mean, they just adjusted. Brilliant. Deserved to win the whole tournament by far.
When you look at the numbers, it really it stands out. It's the stuff champions are made of. 7 games, 7 wins, 15 goals scored, only 4 conceded. They scored the most goals, the most shots on target as well, most assists, and second most clean sheets. That for me is important. With what you do offensively, that's one thing. But second most clean sheets means a very balanced side here.
Yeah, exactly. And they all were balanced. I mean, and taking in mind, they rested a whole lot of players in the round robin stages. So they rested the players because they were through already. So just taking into mind that. So it just shows you what a strong squad they had. The right back, look how brilliant he was. I mean, how many assists? 7 assists. A different class. And if you look at that, you look at their team, it's a team effort. It's not just individual. Look, you got Jamal, you got a couple of players, you had the other boy up front. It doesn't matter. You had Rodri, went out injured. What happens? Someone else steps in, takes his place, you know. So it's a team effort. Bodes well for them going forward if they keep this up. Next World Cup, who's going to be favourites?
I mean,
Spain.
You mentioned young player of the tournament. Then when you look at some of the experienced guys, Cavallal, crazy season as well, where he's a Champions League winner, he's a Euro 24 winner as well, the Liga winner as well. So again, when we speak of balance between experience and youth, you've also got a perfect balance there as well with the Spanish
perfect balance, you know. And if you look at the team that they picked, 6 of their players were in the team, the Euro team. So it just shows you. We had this conversation. Well, we had this conversation. It was pointed out that it was run by Premier League teams in English Premier League, where it's also 6. But if you look at it, the important ones are all Spanish players. And Rodri, I mean, what a player. I mean, what can we say more about him? He's unassuming. He just gets out there, does his job, just does what he has to do. He's not one of these flashy players that's going to make anything stand out. He just does his job. And look what a job he does, you know. And it shows you how important a defending midfielder is.
Well, he's just taken over from the role that was played by, for many years, maybe 10, 15 years, by Sergio Busquets, and just moved it up a level, has he not? And Busquets already was mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing, but he has just moved it up a level, as you can see. I mean, but that whole team, I mean, going forward for the next few years, they got the youngsters coming through, and obviously there are a couple of older guys will retire after this, but you're going to have a core of a team for the next 5, 10, 15 years.
That will dominate. Now, I have to switch it up. Talk Gareth Southgate and England. Firstly, squad selection. When you got guys like Grealish that are used to getting to the semi-finals, finals of top European competitions, used to battling to the last day of the league season, and they don't make the squad, it raises an eyebrow to many. And now, after the fact, we can look back and maybe question your thoughts on Southgate's squad selection firstly.
Well, we spoke about this earlier in the before the tournament started, and I just felt that he picked the wrong players. I would have put Grealish in because of that. I mean, he's got the experience. You picked Foden and he played him out of position, which is a big worry for me. You kept on with Harry Kane, who was totally out of form. We saw that straight away, and he kept on insisting on playing him. But, what can we say? I mean, he's now resigned. He said he's done. He's done well for England.
Yes,
if you look at what he's done, you've got to take your hat off to him. He took him at the worst possible stage, transformed him into a decent team that can compete. Going forward, the next manager must pick his players as per on form and going forward, see if they can improve on what they've done now.
So the future, going forward, that's what's interesting from a Spanish point of view. Do they build from this and go on to conquer the world? And from an English point of view, do they build from where Southgate has left them and see if they can rub shoulders and, slag it out to some of the best in the world? That's the end of our look at the European Championships. On the other side of this, Jerry Skosana joins us and we talk about pre-season in some of the local teams.
Check these guys. Let's show them how to do that. I see it. Let's have a
your feet like this.
Let's see how you play.
Move your feet like this.
Game On continues, and it's time now to look at what's been happening locally in the way of teams getting ready for pre-season. But before we get started with that, with Jerry Skosana, of course, joining me now. Jerry, let's talk about the untimely passing of a great man in South African football, Stanely Screamer Tshabalala.
Thanks, Sizwe. Yeah, kuyinto edabukisa kakhulu leyo, to be honest, because if ubuka nje umlando webhola la eMzansi, he started being a player, and he's also somebody who rubbed shoulders Kaizer Motaung to start Kaizer Chiefs. So when he goes to Sundowns, that's where sonke siqala ukumati khona, to be honest. That was a good thing. And also, for me, there was a time when I was supposed to move from Pirates to Chiefs. He was the one behind that deal, but it just fell through and I couldn't make it. But but not somebody one coach. A person that when he's serious, don't get closer. But he's more like a person that always wants to have people around him laughing and being happy. And that's one thing, he was a loving person to all the players that he coached before.
So when any youngsters hear many of the football lovers saying shoeshine and piano, he's the man that coined that phrase, of course, as we keep things moving. And talk about pre-season now. Interesting times and interesting to where we are now as South African football. Pre-season, you got your big three, Kaizer Chiefs, Sundowns, Pirates, overseas, out in Europe. You've also got a team from overseas, Osberg, coming to South Africa to play against TS Galaxy, including Yanga from Tanzania as well. They'll also be here in South Africa playing a few of the teams. It's interesting that we've gotten to a point where pre-season sees teams preparing very well, going very far to prepare, but also against teams from outside of the country.
Yeah, it's a good thing, especially if you look at TS Galaxy. I mean, for them to have Oxburgh coming over in South Africa to prepare. We're only looking at the well-resourced clubs in terms of Sundowns, Pirates, Chiefs going overseas. But if TS Galaxy is also having a team from overseas to come and play, they will also be playing a younger, from Tanzania, and they'll also be playing a team from Swaziland in Babane Swallows. So it's a good thing not to look only at the 3 big clubs, also other teams, what is their preparation, so that we know what to expect season as I go PSL. So I think for me, the preseason that is happening to TS Galaxy, it's something that we know it's happening overseas to the 3 big clubs.
Now, for Emmanuel Sundowns, I can coach one. So we want to see how things are going to be with the new coaches, not really new coaches, but for Upra Steve coming back especially, and the changes maybe tactically for one. Out abroad, they started off with a loss to a German 3rd division side. Can we read too much into all of this, Kwamanje, or is it just pre-season?
I think it's a pressure. It's a pressure that will go to the coaches and also the change in technical team. Remember, Guti, what Rulani left with at Sundowns, it's something people would say, we're not going to get it back. So for me, it goes back to say Rulani was the master in Sundowns. Yes, he got it from Pitso Musimane, and there was continuity. So now they are like overseas, and then they've lost 2 games already, in the preseason. And it's ringing some alarms like Mamelodi, especially the supporters.
You think so?
It's a worrying factor.
But because we lose the match, but something like pre-season, as long as bad, right?
We look at all 3 teams, and now you've got Orlando Pirates. They played their pre-season, they haven't had a loss. I mean, they drew with the Plymouth Argyle, Wayne Rooney's team. They beat Sevilla in Sevilla, and then they played
1-1.
Granada, 1-1. And those are the big clubs in Spain. So now if you look at Sundowns losing in Germany to a 3rd tier, it's not good. But what I like again with this preseason, Kaizer Chiefs, the way they train, I like their mountain running. I mean, it shows that the coach wants to have a stronger team. I mean, that's the most important thing. They haven't given us any feedback about the results, the games they've played. I think they're still playing amongst each other training. But what they are doing in terms of the training, to me, it says a lot.
Kumbuzi African Rwanda sector.
The 3 mosquitoes. Uzuma. No.
Chiefs.
Kona lo munye mfana lo.
Chiefs, but escapes me now.
The 3 Nami was also a striker with me. Hey, I'm Koshwa, man. Good thing he was naughty, but it's okay. It's one thing that they be right.
Yeah, so pre-season, of course, means things are very interesting for the time being here in South African football. So Kuluma next week's ball with the Manyama team ends journey in as far as pre-season. And thank you so much to Joyce Kusana, of course, as we move on to the next segment where we'll have a special guest joining us. That, of course, is a Hollywood Best ambassador in Brian Beloy. Welcome back to Game On, and we have a special guest in Brian Beloy joining us now to speak, of course, about a man who holds a special place in South African football, that being Screamer Tshabalala, who recently passed away. Brian, thank you so much for your time. The country, I think it's safe to say, is in mourning right now with the passing of Screamer Tshabalala. You had the chance to rub shoulders with the Muspane. Tell us about the man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. May his soul rest in peace. I remember when I just signed for Chiefs, I think around 1991 when he came back to Chiefs. But at the time now, when he came to Chiefs at that time, he came as a team manager. In those times, we had a lot of stories from, the players that he's coached, his style of coaching. And we wanted to experience that, and he was a fun-loving person, man. He was just fun to have around, and wherever he was, people were always laughing. A lot of the players that he's coached that will tell you, whether at club level or at national level, he's one coach that a lot of times, players don't want to be around the coach when it's not, in the game.
Yeah.
But him, players just wanted to be around him. Whether they're having dinner or just sitting around camp, they always wanted to be around him because he always had funny stories, funny things to say about, some of the other players around him.
Yeah. Now, here's a man who has a history. I mean, you are a legend at Chiefs, legend as well at Sundowns. He's also a man who contributed to South African football with Chiefs, with Sundowns, and Orlando Pirates as well. First South African national team coach. All-rounded contribution to South African football up until his passing.
Yeah, all-rounder in terms of contributing to South African football. And I believe is one of the people I would say, when you talk about people that you'd say was never really given his flowers whilst he was still alive, this is the person. Exactly, first South African coach, national team coach. And then, what he achieved with Sundowns, with Pirates. Myself as well, growing up, we always knew him as a Sundowns coach.
Yeah.
The piano in shoe shine. And when you started hearing the stories, when he tells the story that how he came about to come up to coin the phrase, the piano and shoe shine. And that's what made people love Sundowns, in the late 80s, in the 90s. And till today, every Sundowns team that comes and plays, that wants to play beautiful football, people always refer to the piano and shoe shine. They can come with other new terms and all of that, but
goes back
to the piano and shoe shine.
For guys our age and women around the world, by the time we started realizing what's going on as young kids, the name Stanely Screamer Tshabalala was already there. The culture in South African football, Yetiski as we know it, piano and shoe shine, it's not just what he was part of the soccer fraternity, but he created and played a part in the culture of the way things are done in South Africa. Not just before we're allowed into the international stage, but before and after as well.
Yes, and more importantly as well, right now we have Coach Pizzo, we have the Rolanis, and a whole lot of other new younger coaches that are coming up. But if you look at them, especially being Sundowns coaches, they all look up to Screamer. They all want to achieve what he had achieved, in those days. And I've heard him, a whole lot of Sundowns supporters that always say that the team that he had is the best Sundowns team ever.
Yes.
If you had to look at those players that he had back then, the Jersey Queens, the Harold Lehodi, the Iwi Kambules, Mark Anderson. Myself as a young goalkeeper, in those days, one of the people that I looked up to was Mark Anderson.
Yes.
And when I first got my call up in '97, when I got to camp, I remember just walking and sharing a room with him, my hero. And those are some of the players that he coached and that really, hold him very high. And they most of them, they all tell you how he came up with how a coach, a perfect coach would be today, where he always wanted to be very close to his players and to be the father figure, where before coaches were always,
bosses.
Yeah.
So there you have it then, as we continue to remember and mourn a man who did so much for South African football, for South Africa since way back. We're talking back in the 70s up until this very day. We, of course, send our thoughts and prayers to the Tshabalala family and the South African football fraternity as a whole is in mourning. Now, HollywoodBets has been hard at work, of course, as you always know, out in the Northwest. with the Men's Regional League. So let's find out what HollywoodBets has been doing and give it back.
The HollywoodBets Regional League Playoffs. This is where you find the purest form of the beautiful game. This time, our journey took us to the Northwest Province, and it was clear from the onset that the atmosphere was going to be electric.
What we need to do first is to appreciate HollywoodBets for having stepped in and came as a partner. You know, sometimes the word sponsor for me, it's like you are only coming in and putting in money, but you are a partner, so that we can work together and ensure that we develop football together. Its inaugural year has brought a dimension, particularly in the Northwest, where people now are associating this particular regional leagues with a very renowned brand. And it has actually awakened this, and our development level and our development strategies are at another level.
After many battles throughout the season in the Northwest Province, it was down to 4 teams in the HollywoodBets Regional League Playoffs, with 2 spots up for grabs in the ABC Motsepe League for the 2 finalists. Bakaka, Nkamodira, Real Movers and Patlero Football Club, these were the teams who had made it all the way to the semi-finals, who would be standing tall at the end of it all. Both semi-finals were intense, filled with drama, moments of magic and moments of regret, with penalties needed on both occasions to decide the winner.
Can't explain the feeling. I think it's been a while. It's been too long. I think it's maybe 8 years now. Been fighting for this team to get the promotion to ABC Motsepe. So at least the boys have made me proud. Even though the first half they lost a little bit of focus, but I'm happy that they have won.
We're very happy, very emotional, you know, looking back where we come from throughout the season, the challenges that we had. We've been through so much challenges, and then, you know, with this kind of boys, they showed me that they want to win this, you know, so it's very touchy for me.
The 2 promoted teams and winners of the shootouts, Bakaka FC and Real Movers, then faced off in the final for the title and what many would describe as the icing on the cake. It was Real Movers FC who emerged as the champions of the HollywoodBets Regional League Playoffs in the Northwest Province, and it rounded off a great season for them and all their supporters. This was once again a great advertisement for South African football.
What I'm seeing here, like the boys, their parents are calling them, they are watching them, so it's motivating them itself. So I think maybe some of them now, they will start coming and playing. So I think it's gonna promote, like we're gonna maybe in years to come, we're gonna have a good national team. Because of now, maybe the boys, they will come from here.
I can tell you today that after these games, next season in the new league, there will surely be more interest in this particular league. Like I said, I just want to thank HollyBets for coming to SAFA and becoming a partner with us in developing football.
HollywoodBets doing their bit, of course, in giving back to the beautifully South African game. Now, we have run out of time, so we'd like to take the time to thank you at home for taking the time to join us here on this Saturday afternoon. We'd also like to give a special mention and a special thank you to Screamer Tshabalala for his true contribution to the South African game, and may his soul rest in peace.